pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Schofield.
Ramirez,
Present.
Velasquez,
Present.
Stoker,
Present.
Ayala,
Here.
Ochoa,
Here.
Pantoya,
Here.
Rica.
Here.
Right. I would entertain a motion for executive session.
I motion to go into executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subjected to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS 24-6-402 4E.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, the camera will be on. I want to just give you guys some ground rules. We're going to go to executive session. The camera will be on. I don't know if Adrian's going to stay on or not, but just know that that's live. So if you guys are talking, it's going to come through on Facebook. In addition to that, we will have business afterwards. We will come out and we will have the rest of the regular meeting. I don't know how long it's going to be. I want to say it should be fairly short, but it could be a little bit longer. So we will be going to executive now.
So we'll take a quick break from our live stream and we'll resume once they're back in session. For the Lahana City Council and the people of Southeast Colorado, with your Southeast Colorado news, I'm Adrian Hart.
Minutes of the previous meeting. I would entertain a motion for minutes of the previous meeting.
I motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That passes unanimously. Citizen participation for non-agenda items only. You have 5-minute time limit per person, and you will have to state your name and address for the record. You turned it off.
Sorry. Actually, the Director of Finance, City of Lahana. As many of you know, the municipal building hours have changed to Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 5, and Fridays from 7:30 to 11:30. With this change, utility bills that were due on January 10th, which is Friday, are now due on January 13th, Monday. The utility hours have changed. Utility office hours have changed. It's Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 4:30, and Friday, 7:30 to 11 a.m. The office always closes a half hour early so that the utility personnel can do their paperwork. Cycle 1 is due on the 10th of the month, and Cycle 2 is due on the 20th of the month. With the new schedule, utility bills of any kind will not be due on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They will be the next business day, and if there's a holiday, it too will go to the next business day. So as an example, Martin Luther King Day is January 20th, which would normally be a due date. It is not the due date because it's a holiday, so it will revert to that Monday, that Tuesday, January 21st. So as a rule of thumb, if the municipal building is closed for the day or even the afternoon, it's not a due date. And I just wanted to reiterate, we get more here than I do when I talk at utility board. So we want to also encourage people to utilize the online portal and the 2 night drops. There's one in the drive up, and then there's another one at the front of this building. So I just wanted to make that well known. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for citizen participation? Going once, going twice. Okay. City manager search. I will first report on the selection committee. I would like to thank everybody who was on our selection committee. It was Gary Addington, it was Megan Bender, it was MJ Romano, Lisa Pantoya, and what's it? Yeah, Andy Flemmer, and who's the other one? Christina, yes, Christina. Sorry, Tazi, that's not slight to you. When you call her that, I call her Tazi. Christina Tazi. They did a wonderful job. They, gave their time to help us with numerous interviews, not just one round, but 2 rounds. And the selection committee unanimously selected Michael Hart and presented him as their pick for city manager, to which then the council also did as well too. Got to meet with Michael, and they also did that. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for the city manager contract. What are we gonna title it, Aaron? Is it contract agreement, employment agreement?
Do you mean a motion or
Yeah.
the thing itself? I think the motion would be to extend an offer of employment to just that to start.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to extend the offer to Michael Hart.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I feel like this was a right decision, but also, since the first time didn't work out, I will put on comment that, I felt that we should have put a little more focus on what we currently had here. I think Michael will do a good job, but I think the city was in a good place with Brad. And like I said, I'm happy with the decision, but I feel we should have put a little bit more focus in possibly extending Brad. But
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to Mrs. Harris.
Moving on to the very, very long second reading of the title of this ordinance. So here we go. This is an ordinance authorizing a loan from the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority to the City of La Junta, acting by and through its water enterprise in the maximum aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $300,000 to finance a portion of the design and engineering cost of a certain water resource project, authorizing the form and execution of the loan agreement and a general agency bond to evidence such loan, delegating to certain authorized officers the authority to determine within certain parameters certain financial matters pertaining to the loan, authorizing the execution and delivery of documents related thereto, and prescribing other details in connection therewith. Now, to remind all of you, this is the first document that is being used to open the door for the grant that the Water Enterprise and Tom Seba were able to secure. This is the first of several, and these are all, the language and the structure are all handed to us. This is certainly not something that we drafted and therefore need to critique.
I'll move approval on second reading.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That passes unanimously. Speed trailer. If Mrs. Hinkhouse could come to the front, I will give a brief overview on what is going on. Brad has been a part of this. It's been a fun process, right, Brad?
Yeah.
So for those of you who may or may not have noticed a solar paneled speed trailer right across from the cemetery, almost by O'Reilly.
Yeah, straight across from O'Reilly's.
Dalton,
Yep.
about approximately. That is a speed trailer. It is capturing your speed. It is capturing your license plate. That is a trial run, so don't everyone freak out all at once. So no one's going to get any mail if they were speeding in that area. But this came up about, 2 months ago, Brad?
Yeah, about 2 months ago.
A conversation with me and Chief Quick about, I read an article about these speed trailers to help combat people speeding through town. Thanks to Mrs. Hinkhouse, she got with a couple of companies, reached out, and we got, this speed trailer down here. Now, there are costs associated with this. Some of it should be recouped. Some of it may not be recouped. There has been a lot of, reports that Mrs. Hinkhouse has looked at. She's also looked at different companies, and she has answers, for the most part, to a lot of things you guys are probably going to ask. but it's something that I felt that we need to talk about as a council before we go any further with this whole test slash. It's just something I thought would help, but I don't know if it's actually going to help or not. If you follow any local news, and when I say local, I mean state of Colorado, the city of Morrison actually just had to basically shut down their whole police department because they used what they projected a speed trailer was going to get them in their budget, and then it didn't. So it's not a huge town, Morrison, but it wiped out that whole department because they weren't able to recoup what they thought they were going to get from it. So if you want to just give the basics of the one we're doing now, and then we can talk about anything else that comes up.
Actually, Mr. Mayor covered it very well. So part of what purchasing does is research, and in this case it led me to the demo program. This particular program, and it's very similar, I looked at several. This was kind of, well, the one that I think made it maybe easiest is the term for us to proceed and get the data from. This particular one, there's a flat fee of $3,500. Now, with that fee, you would get data assessment and citation management. Now, that being said, at 500 citations, then we would be assessed another $1,000. So let's do the math there. There's kind of a sweet spot. If you were anything over the 3,500, you would recoup basically, because any citations you would actually collect from could go to your flat fee, and then anything above that you could keep, if you will. But you go over 500 citations, and then you're assessed another $1,000. That's a fairly big chunk of change. But the citations per state law have a maximum of $40 in a general traffic area and $80 in hospital and school zones. So, like I said, those collective fees can be applied to the flat fee. But that being said, we only have a 40 to 50% pay rate in our area. And that's kind of a, when I say our area, that's going to be very general. This half of the state, maybe, so it's hard to tell. Really hard to tell, and I think that's part of the problem. There's good and there's bad to it, but the unknown. We talked about this with the supervisors today, the unknown, not really knowing what you could recoup, which is probably what got Morrison into trouble. Because there is a 5-year commitment, but it can be reassessed at a year, because Tabor laws state that this money has to be budgeted for. That being said, that 5-year commitment isn't. So they would assess with us at a year. It was just blowing up our world, so to speak. So that's it in a nutshell. Anything more?
Do you want to talk about how many on the highway you guys were getting weekly?
What was the exact number? I don't know.
Oh, it was,
And this was for 10 over, correct?
Yes.
11 over, yeah. And the company goes in, when they set this up, they set the threshold of what it is. And then the company also has a group of people for that fee who looks at the license plates to make sure who they're registered to. It's not emergency vehicles getting tickets, things like that. So there has to be a whole list of things turned in prior to this, all emergency vehicles from the local area and everything as well. So there's a lot of time behind it as well. The numbers were, I want to say it was 4,100.
So the first one was 43 from 1122 to 1126.
Right.
And then from 1128 to 12/2, we had 5,400.
Right. And what they do is they look at that and they're like, well, are they right at the threshold? How much more over? Things like that. So there's a whole list of stuff that this group looks at before they narrow it down. So just because you're going 10 over or 11 over, you may not get a ticket. It's just there's all kinds of parameters that they have to meet.
And that's a data assessment I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just boom, there's your license plate, boom, that posts a citation to you. There's a lot that has to be assessed. So of that 41, 43, those aren't all citations.
And then it also comes back to if you've ever traveled on C4 or E470, that's how it kind of works, where you go through, you get the toll, they send you the ticket or the invoice in the mail. You don't pay it, it goes to collections. Well, then we'd have to pay an additional cost, I believe, if we wanted to set up the collection side of it as well for people even local or out of state, that didn't pay for this. You know, they're like, they're not going to do anything about it. If you don't have a collection process behind that, you're not going to get any funds absorbed anyway. So.
Which is, I asked Jen, I said, what if we just bought our own trailer? And then she said, well, you'll need someone to look at all the data.
To manage it, yeah.
And absolutely do it. It can be done.
It could be done.
But, you know, who's going to do that portion? How does that look?
That's a full-time job by
It's a
somebody.
full-time job in and of itself, so you're not really saving.
We did ask them to come maybe move it, because you can't just pick up the trailer and go move it. There's programming of it. It has to sit in a certain area. It's got to be off the roadway. There's all kinds of parameters it has to meet just to move it. So I'll let Jen kind of talk about the rest of that too.
And they did say they would come and help us do that. It wouldn't always have to be that way, but maybe this first time, they said, let us help you move it, make sure it's how you want it and where you want it and that type of thing. And so we could, we talked a little bit about maybe doing it in town and see how that looked. And they're willing to do that for us. We just have to coordinate, because they do have to come from, I think, Arizona. That's where the closest gentleman was. So that will take a little time, but you know, that's certainly a possibility as well, because the joy of a demo program is there, and they would extend that for us a little bit so we can really get a picture of what it would look like. So they're willing to do that.
And then also too, on top of that, then we as a council, or you as a council, and us as a community, we have to have ordinances passed. We have to have signage put up around town stating that we are conducting this type of radar and things like that. So there's a lot of legwork ahead of this as well.
Which is why we didn't want to go any further until we had this discussion as a group. Paul might have a lot more expertise and stuff like this, but my initial goal was just to make it safer around town.
Sure.
You know, we're putting up stop signs, we're doing stuff like that. I wanted to make sure people aren't just going through. And our police department, you know, they're really busy, they're really stretched thin, they can't be everywhere at once. So I thought this might help out, but let's say we're getting 4,500 on the highway, but what does that look like when it's in town? What if we're not even getting enough to pay for the 3,500 a month? Then you take that by 50% that we hope to collect. So it's just all a discussion that I think we really need to think about before we instruct Jen and them to maybe move forward, or what that looks like.
And I did look into as well, as it came up, our current signs could be equipped to do that, but then we'd have to purchase cameras, and we're back to managing our own data at that point.
The current signs that flash when you pass by them.
Yes, we could uniform them to do that. It could absolutely be done, but I think the data management would be the difficult part of that. It could be done, you know, for the purchase of the cameras, what that would all take.
And then you'd have to weigh that against how long a time it would take, personnel it would take to take care of that. Where are we on that? Is it going to make the money back enough to even cover that? So.
How was the current location chosen? Because we're going from a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone to a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone. Some people are under the false pretense that there is something called a step-up or a step-down zone. The speed limits go into effect at the sign. That's where they're first posted. So just like a touchdown, it doesn't count till you cross the goal line. That's when the speed limit increases. So you can't say, well, I was speeding up to go 55 in that speed zone. So how was that the current location chosen?
I can't speak to that.
My understanding was when they came and they met with Chief Quick, there was a certain area that has to be off the roadway. You know, it has to sit so far off the roadway and in a secure area. So that was kind of the area that the company suggested being right there because of the speed change area and being off the highway in a certain area is what I was told. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. You know, you're going from 35 to 45, you know, and it's in that zone right there. So I wish I had a little more information on that.
Well, I just, and not that I'm saying that the company has any ulterior or unscrupulous motives to it to increase the number of vehicles that they're capturing the speed so they can sell the product. I'd like to see it more stable speed zone, like somewhere in La Junta as you're entering from the east side or something. Because I've seen commercial vehicles coming into town at least 60 miles an hour.
Well, and I thought too, after I spoke with Jen a little bit and I spoke with Chief Quick, we were thinking of trying a school zone first, especially with everybody just coming back from break and seeing how we can do there, because those kiddos, I mean, we want to make sure that we're hitting those areas. But I do agree, maybe try it on the other side of town or along Adams area, more commercial vehicles as well.
But then we get back into placement too,
Yeah.
I think, which is why we asked them to come back, because I do think any of the places that we're looking into trying are not gonna have the room, that we currently have, so, because ultimately, they have to be able to place it in an area where they can get a good picture. Or
Yeah.
something.
So it can't just be thrown along
Just, you know.
Fifth Street, or you know what I mean? You can't just, oh, this looks like a good spot. There's areas because of the view of the cameras and the quality and things like that.
And we'd also have to budget for it, and even though it should pay for itself, if it doesn't, then that's, instead of
Then
it
we
being a
could be-
resource, it's a tool on it.
And who sets the threshold for, you know, when citations get put out? Because like, I know one of the things is I wouldn't want to see tickets being written when our own police department, had they been in that same location running radar at the same time, may or may not have wrote a ticket. One, either would they have pulled them over to begin with, and two, if they did, is it a warning or is it a ticket? Because, you know, I wouldn't want to see our own police department, if they wouldn't write a ticket in that instance, to necessarily have one of our citizens get a ticket from, that's essentially going to another entity
And we do lose
before
that.
us.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that
Responsibility.
my understanding too was that the company sets that threshold because of the way it's set up. It's not this area is going to be 3 miles an hour. It's set in by that company because of the way the ticketing process and citations are done.
And I was able to look at some of the data as it captures the license. It does show 5 miles over, 6 miles over, 11 miles over. It does capture how far over the speed limit you are at that point as well. It's set to capture them, but it will picture.
And it's all administrative, no points assessed.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so I guess we would have to have means if they just stuck the ticket in their glove box. I know on E470, if you fail to pay a certain point, even after collections, when you go to register your vehicle, you may not be allowed to register.
Yeah. So that's more legwork that would probably have to be set up down the road.
Yeah, on that week of November, the highest one was 96 miles an hour. It captured something.
That wasn't me.
45.
45?
I don't know, you bragged about going fast.
That's different. That's a different story.
But well, and then does it take into consideration some of the variables that are into radar, like mixed speed capture, multiple target capture?
My understanding is the group of people who do the data research on it and review because what we were told is they look at every picture, and they are retired police officers, law enforcement background, and there's a criteria that they have that they do checkoffs on, and that's how they just determine okay, we might have 4,100 people that are speeding or that violated that, but maybe only 600 of those are getting tickets out of what they met if they didn't meet all the requirements.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a process to contest a ticket?
I do not.
Okay.
We couldn't get a clear answer on that because of the way the process comes through, so we're still trying to find out for us.
I think they're trying to avoid that with all of the criteria that would need to be met, to in fact get a ticket, but
And then real quick, Aaron, this wouldn't help out our current courts, right? Because it would not be going to them. So,
It wouldn't go to the current courts. My guess to answer Maureen's question, although I don't know, let's say that you do send it to collections. Any collections case, one has to demonstrate that the debt has actually occurred. Oddly enough, that usually means that one has to trace a particular purchase through, let's say credit card companies have changed hands and we have to trace the debt. In this case, though, it might end up making collection cases all about speed and photo and whether or not the particular party is identified in the photo. I don't know more than that, but to answer Joe's question, this is not probably going to be connected to anything that we do. And I do think that as we continue dialoguing about all of it, we may want to make clear to our officers that at the risk of sounding sci-fi, we're not hiring a machine to do what the officers can do. And we may want to make that very clear as we start looking at the positioning of it or what it does, and try to make sure that the officers understand that this is a deterrent that we're trying to do to give them space to do the work that we're asking them, and that they wanted to be police officers to
I think me and
accomplish.
Brad were very clear with Todd that this is to help them out and
Perfect.
to be an added benefit. But that doesn't mean they're going to stop doing traffic.
Exactly.
But
Right.
that it would also help them out, hopefully. But we're getting all this information, and it's tough to say what the right answer is.
And I don't know if we've talked with Judge Manley or anything, but we may also need to make clear that this would not change the number of tickets that would be going through Muni Court. Muni Court tickets would most likely remain consistent, and that this process would be entirely in addition to all that.
Any other questions?
How once if we were to rent the trailer, is there a cost each time we want it moved to a new location, or
That was included in the flat fee, but actually we should be able to move it ourselves.
Yeah, they would be able to train our staff to move it, program it, do all that stuff.
okay? 'Cause it seems like if it's to deter in areas where traffic is too fast, we would need to move it pretty often to continue with that being the goal. So
Yeah, and that would be one of the things that we'd have to think about.
You'd have to move it to do that, but then you also don't want to get too many because then you get an extra $1,000, tagged on to your
On your
bill,
tickets, yeah.
which is why Jen said there's a sweet spot in there. And then you're thinking, okay, you get 4,000, but if they go through and only 600 are valid out of that 4,000, then you're looking at a 40% rate on that 600.
That we're hoping for.
Yeah.
And I know we're not making any decisions, but budget-wise, me personally, that's 87 tickets a month just to break that flat fee. So, we just went through 2A. Brad made a bunch of cuts to our budgets. A lot of areas were cut. And where our budget is currently, I think this is too much of a gamble to play on, because, like I said, just to meet that 3,500, we need 87 tickets a month.
That's
And-
paid. That's 87
Yeah.
paid tickets, yes.
And I don't think we have the wiggle room in the budget to even consider it, even though it is a good aspect of public safety. Our budget can't risk it.
Do they have a report that says what would be good, like out of that 4,800? Do they have one that said, yay, 600 of these were good, or?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah. So we could figure
Because
that
I
out.
hadn't seen that. I appreciate what Jeremiah said, but I'd also like to see it move to a smaller area and see how many that gets at the 11 over.
Yeah.
Before that's just because we're still under the trial period.
Right,
Correct? Yep.
exactly. They extended that for us, and that's why we research.
So I think
outside reasons.
I'd like to ask the council to let us go ahead and do that and let us move it around and let's see what other information we can gather, maybe break down the reports a little more of, okay, this would have meant this many, this is how many would have been sent out, just to give us a little better idea.
Yeah, I agree with that, and the fact that maybe you find the information out if they have a percentage that actually do get paid, what that percentage looks like on an average.
Sure. Yeah, we can come back with a little more information.
Sure. Anything else?
Can it program to catch people who run stop signs?
No.
No, I don't think so.
So you're okay.
Thank you, Jen, for all the work you've put in behind this, and I just wanted council to have a brief idea of what was going on, so that way when it is completed, that we can start thinking about what else we want to see if we want to go forward with that.
Anything else?
Thank you for your hard work.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Mrs. Harris here.
Right. I'm going to suggest that we take a look at all these annual resolutions on the agenda under letter A, take them at the same time. The reason for that is that all of these resolutions are things that the city does yearly in order to comply with law concerning the public awareness of our meetings, the proper holding of our funds, and so on. So the 5 that are listed here, the first one deals with the posting of open meetings. This is a resolution that indicates where we will be posting that a meeting is happening. In number 2, the designating official depositories for city funds. This is literally a list of where the banks are, where the city is going to put money. In number 3, offenses against city property. This is a resolution that indicates that process, and it's done every year. Number 4, the publication of legal notices. This document actually indicates that we will use the La Junta Tribune Democrat, which is helpful, because anytime that we're having to make a notice, we don't want people questioning what the official paper is. Finally, on number 5, designating enterprise funds under Tabor. Just a quick thing, Tabor, you end up thinking maybe that that's somebody's last name. It's not. It's Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So that's what it is. And under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, enterprise funds don't have to count the same way. And we here are, this group as well as the utility board, we talk about enterprise funds all the time. Normally when we're talking about them in the context of the city, we're designating that it is money that is not part of the general fund, but more specifically, an enterprise fund means that it operates independently and is not getting the benefit of tax dollars and therefore is exempt from Tabor. So in each year, we designate what our enterprise funds are so that we can make it clear from the beginning which groups of funds are not subject to these particular regulations. Any other questions on those?
No questions on the resolutions, but I do have 2 specific questions on 1 and 4 and might want to make an amendment, so I'm not sure we can take all 5 together.
Okay, in that case, let's take the first one and see how it goes. Posting of open meetings.
I'll make a motion to adopt the annual resolution of posting open meetings.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Yeah, I know last year we talked about that it would be putting also on the website after that it would be posted in the foyer. And at the time we said we didn't know, it was unclear if that would satisfy the requirements of this particular annual resolution. Do we know if there's any clarification about that?
I think what we talked about was that we would want to make it a duplicate. We certainly could make reference here in the resolution that we would do it both places, but I think ideally it would be that we post it in the foyer and then that we make a practice of also putting it on the website. That way we're official and making it available in other places. I don't know the progress of adding it to the website, but my general concern is that we have had dialogue for the time that I've been here about changes made on the website, and I'm not sure that that is as reliable as knowing that we're following a process that's here, but I certainly would agree that we could do it in addition to.
Okay.
I would make note in following up with that if it was on the city website that to my last attempt, the city website is not available through Google, which is a major search. So, I mean, that wouldn't even be accessible anyway, so.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and they're trying to work on it and figure out why you can't just type it into Google like you should on everything else. That's a glitch on the search engine side.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to amend resolution number R1 2025.
We already have a motion and a second.
So first we would,
Yeah, I'm making an amendment to the motion.
I think we would have to vote it down as it is now and then amend it and put it up again.
I don't think so. I think you can make, it has to be being considered to be able to make an amendment. You can't make an amendment before it's being considered.
In that case, I will admit that I don't have enough specific knowledge to know how that works, but what it would appear to me is that if it's been moved and seconded in its current state, there may have been folks who would have voted the other direction. Certainly, it sounds like we could go ahead and do it that way tonight, and we can double check, or if the group wants to clarify. The thing is, these do need to be adopted at some point within the first month of the year. But
Okay. And we can check parliamentary procedure.
sure, I just don't
the
happen to
process.
have the book right here.
Okay.
And if you want to make the amendment now and then we can retract, that is also an option, because it doesn't mean that we don't do the work today. It would just mean that if we discovered later that we could not make an amendment through that method, then we would have to go backward. But I don't know, and I'm not prepared with a document to be able to state whether your method is correct or not. I think that one statement I would just make is if we amend the official resolution that it must that the posting is official when placed on the website, we would just want to make it clear that it would, I think, was your amendment going to be that we would add that to this, or that it would be done in as an alternative to?
No, amending to add the words "and" on the city website after the last period and be it further resolved. So just adding 5 words.
I think it would be up to council. I'm not able to render an opinion about how the parliamentary procedure works. I think it would be fine to vote on it this way, and I can get back to you once I can look, but I don't have that available to me right now.
Is there any other discussion on the current motion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That passes. Someone not vote? What? 4-3. Now I'll entertain a motion for number 2.
The second, if you remember, is the designating official depositories for city funds.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously. Number 3,
The third is offenses against city property.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That passes unanimously. Number 4, I'd entertain a motion.
All right, I make a motion to adopt resolution number R4 2025 with the amendment of adding "and the city website" after City of La Junta at the end of the "be it resolved" paragraph.
I'd like to weigh in on that if I could. Generally, when we're talking about a publication, electronic means of publication are not generally made available within the law and the way that this publication is done. The reference to publication here is not done the same way as a website would. If we were to do that, we'd be making a tremendous change when when official legal notices are posted. They are posted on paper. There is not a precedent for putting them on some other kind of electronic basis. Adding it would be interesting because what we're talking about here are legal notices that can include lots of different long form various discussions. So I would question whether we want to have a resolution that requires the inclusion of that. I realize I'm not on council, but I just want to clarify that when we're talking about all legal notices required to be published by the ordinances of the city shall be published in the Tribune Democrat, as well as, it sounds like you're suggesting, on the website. There has been dialogue in the past about whether or not the Tribune Democrat was the appropriate paper to use because they do not publish as frequently. But when that dialogue came up, there was a discussion of another printed document that could be used in the alternative, such as the Rocky Ford Daily Gazette. There has never been a time that those kinds of notices were placed in an electronic only format versus one that is written.
So hearing that, there is a motion. Is there a second? Hearing no second, that motion dies. Is there another motion for number 4?
I make a motion for approve the publication of legal notices as presented.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Asking because last year we had the sale of several properties that came before the council, that there was question about how widely the different notices was being distributed, and we had the conversation at that time that we probably needed to come up with a better way to communicate with the public about public notices. So that is the motivation behind wanting to do something that is more transparent and inclusive.
If I may, again, I'm not on council. I'm speaking only because we're making eye contact, Maureen, and so I'm concerned that maybe it's directed to me. After that dialogue, I did go speak with Ms. Hinkhouse, who happens to be here. Our dialogue during that meeting was that putting up for sale signs on the particular properties was the most transparent and the most likely to be treated as though a property was for sale, looking at it the way that all other property sales are made available and known. There was not dialogue with Ms. Hinkhouse at that time concerning extending a listing like this. Certainly, I don't know that anyone would be opposed to putting up signs, but I don't believe that there's been anything more than that informal dialogue that I did have with Jennifer.
Okay. Did the policy change then from the last time we had this conversation at council about if there's surplus property?
What I believe, and if I may again, responding as not a council member, but again because eye contact is being made and because I was the one who had the conversation, I believe that this is a difference of policy versus practice. I don't believe there was ever a policy that had to do with how these land plots were being made available. I believe that it was a practice where it had been listed there because that was the traditional method. Once you brought that up during that meeting so long ago, I think it was April, I did go speak with Jennifer, and as far as I understand, the new practice has been to put up signs. I'm not aware of another piece of land that has been for sale, but I know that that was the dialogue and the expectation at that time.
Yeah, I'm going to call for the question.
All right. We've had a motion, second, and discussion, and a call for question. I'll ask for your vote. And that passes 6-1. Number 5.
Number 5 is designating enterprise funds.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. Almost cleared it instead of voting. That passes unanimously.
We move on to letter B. Letter B under new business was the application for renewal of a fermented malt beverage and wine liquor license by the Mini Mart Incorporated that does business as the Loaf and Chug that's located on 3rd Street. I've looked at the documents. Everything appears to be in place. I spoke with our city clerk, Melanie Schofield, and asked her if she would make known here at the meeting whether there was anything that the council should know prior to voting. Melanie, was there anything notable or out of line concerning the application?
No, everything was in order. I would recommend approval.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to renew the fermented malt beverage and wine liquor license by Mini Mart.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously. You are now done, Mrs. Harris. Thank you. Committee and board reports. I don't think we've had any meetings since the last meeting, so.
No, but there's a senior center advisory committee this Thursday at 10 a.m. You're all welcome to attend.
I do have something on committee and board reports, not actually a committee and board report, but Melanie has done some legwork for us, and I'm just going to have Aaron maybe double check it, but here's what we have found out, that the tourism board, they can have one member as the mayor and the other member as the city manager or designee.
Right.
So, that could be something that the council can choose to add onto the tourism board there. So start thinking about that. And the other one is the library board. They have 5 members, and one of them is the city manager or the designee. So that is 2 potential council appointments for us if we wanted to do that. Whereas tourism board, and I know Aaron did do some legwork on that, there could be additions. So if we wanted to keep the city manager, and then I think we'd have to do at least 2 or 1 more, or probably 2 more on that one to keep it an odd number, so it's not an even number. They don't tie for votes. We could look at expanding that board if we wanted to do that to keep the city manager and add more members. So that would just be something that I think we should all think about before the next one. I just want to double check on a couple of things, so before we say, yeah, we want to do this, if it's okay, then that'd be something I'd tell council to think about if they would be interested in being on those boards.
Certainly, I think that's the research that we shared, was that the council makes the decision about the size of those boards.
Yeah. All right. Interim city manager comments.
All right, just got a few things to go over. First of all, it was brought to my attention today that the Calvary Church, located right over here at 5th and Colorado, is going to be opening up as a warming shelter for starting today at 4 p.m. until the 8th at noon. They were looking for some volunteers. Last I heard, they had a good handful, and they were trying to secure a few more. So that's going to be going on with the next few days of the cold weather and the type of weather coming in. Had a supervisors meeting this morning, and we did ask for them to start working on their annual reports. I put a deadline at the very first week of February, so we can get that all put together and have it ready for council later in February. So there's that. The line crew, you may have noticed, they started working on getting our decorations down. They made good headway of getting it down on Friday along the highway right before the ice came in. Unfortunately, though, with the way the weather's coming in, they still have the downtown area to work on, but they're going to get that as soon as possible. They did ask, though, that when people are driving by them and they are taking down things, use a little extra caution. They usually have a vehicle or 2 that have the directional arrow on and things like that, but people are still speeding by. So if you see them out working, just use a little extra caution, and we ask that from the community as well. But they've been working hard on that. Wastewater, they're moving forward with trying to secure the screw press for the sludge removal or the sludge process. Tom and Jen have been working hard on that, and I approved a PO to move forward, and then they will be working on putting information out for a bid process to have a building built for this piece of machinery and things like that. So you'll see some activity in the next few months, don't you think, Tom? Yes, sir. Going on over at the wastewater plant. So, which is going to help us down the road on trying to recover some money and cut cost of what we're paying to have the sludge hauled away right now. The library started its new Saturday hours this week, or for the month. They'll be doing this the rest of the year. So on Saturdays, they're going to be open from 12 to 4 instead of all day long on Saturdays. So that was about the main time of when their busiest time was. So we decided to just be on 12 to 4 on Saturdays at the library. So working there. The city building, we did, and all the other departments, we started the new hours. Again, as Elisa talked about earlier, the city building's open from 7:30 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and then 7:30 to 11:30 on Fridays. And so it went really well this week so far. We only had a couple days, but this Friday was a little weird, going home at noon and not knowing to do with myself. So I'll be finding a new hobby, maybe cleaning my garage or something. So it's all good that way. Here's some positive news. We were notified late Friday, Martin Montoya on the street department and myself, that we were awarded a grant through CDOT for $250,000 for the design phase of the bridge replacement at 3rd and Anderson. You guys might remember we gave that report of that inspector came out and they're like, the next few years you're going to have to do something. So he started working hard on contacting CDOT and talking with them. Apparently a long time ago, that used to be the highway through town. So that's kind of a designated area. So CDOT's going to be able to help us with this. So we were awarded $250,000, and that will start the design process. And we're working on some other avenues of securing maybe some more money next year. But with this will bump us up on the list to be available for more grant money next year to maybe get that bridge process started. So it'll move up in the next, instead of being 5 years out, looks like maybe the next couple years. So that's real positive. So good on that. Again, as everybody knows, January 1st, we started, or the state of Colorado is starting to do the hands-free driving. So we as a city, I wanted to make sure that we were ahead of the game. Jen's working on it this week. Don's working on getting a policy put in place, but all of our vehicles or all of the departments are looking at making sure that our staff are equipped with Bluetooth devices, probably be issued to them, because we do have a lot of older vehicles that don't have Bluetooth in them. And then this way, if they do need to use their phone while driving, they have that capability, and we're on top of it before. As I stressed this morning in the supervisors meeting, I told them we want to be good role models in the community, so making sure that we do it, and that if city employees are caught doing that and get a ticket, they're on their own, because we're going to be providing this. So making sure that we have working devices and things like that. So that is in the next couple weeks of getting that up and rolling. So I think we're sitting pretty good right now. I think that's what I've got right now.
Thank you, Brad. I have a couple of questions for
Sure.
you. Me and my family were out on the trail since the start of the year, and me and you did talk about this briefly, but there is a rather large tent that has been erected right by 3rd and Anderson. So
300 block of Maple.
300 block of Maple. And it was reported to me. I think it was reported to you and Chief Quick as well too. Do you want to explain what's going on there so the public knows that
Sure.
there has been
that has been reported. Law enforcement did make contact with the property owner, because the way it looks, it's sitting down behind a house right next to the arroyo. Well, it has been investigated and looked. That property, the tent is sitting on private property, so it is the property of that house, and that those people have given that person the okay to camp there. So it's on private property. There's really nothing that we can do. We are watching to make sure that trash isn't being blown down into the arroyo and stuff like that, because if that's the case, then we can do littering process on that. The other one that we have, you might have noticed too, and we ran a fire call over there last week, is on the east side of town on the arroyo right next to Highway 50. You can kind of see it. When I got on scene over there, I was like, okay, great opportunity, called law enforcement over there, and we pulled up the GIS map, and it's about 15 feet within the county limits. So it's outside of city limits, but the property is on its county. Again, hands are kind of tied. But I did talk to Under Sheriff Wallace. He's going to try to do what he can do from his side and talk with Board of County Commissioners. I'm going to call him as well and say, hey, we got to get on the same page here. So because now we have this tent that is becoming a nuisance on call wise, because this gentleman likes to light fires to warm his food up. It's right next to the highway. We get a phone call of a possible wheat and grass fire in the arroyo. We get there and he's warming up food. So I did speak to him too. Chief Quick did tell me that he's been in touch with one of the gentlemen that was really big on the homeless coalition stuff, and he's going to be reaching out to him too and seeing if he can't assist them of getting down to Fort Lyon or other resources. So this gentleman's been working hard too.
or maybe the Howdy group can.
Yeah, and he's part of this Howdy group. Yes, Jeff. So yes, so we can. Those are the two areas. They did remove another tent down in the Anderson Arroyo behind the Halloween shop, which was on city property. They went down, gave her 30 minutes to get her stuff, and then the city crews went down and cleaned it all up. So we are in the process of really making sure that they are doing checks, they are getting moved on, but unfortunately those two are right outside our area to do much on.
Thanks to the Calvary Church too for
Yes.
opening up
That was a great
for that.
opportunity tonight.
Hopefully people take advantage of that and utilize that because it is way too cold out there to be.
It isn't a bad thing.
Governing body comments. Any governing body comments?
I have a couple. In keeping in line with second Monday, the Ward 3 listening and tour will be this coming Monday on the 13th. Thanks to Ward 3 citizen Dottie Burnett, we have space at Casa del Sol and the Aspen Center, so you don't have to be outside at the Mercantile Park. It is a little bit chilly for that, so anyone from Ward 3 or beyond, anyone's welcome to come for 2025 goal setting and a listening tour. You are very welcome. I know Brad said that he was looking for things to do on Friday afternoons, and I wanted to catch anybody who's looking for New Year's resolution ideas. Just been very reflective lately about Clean Valley recycling. If you are not taking advantage of curbside recycling, I urge you to consider it as something to start this year. It's $9 a month, and I think it's super impactful that Clean Valley Recycling in the 2024 year diverted 873 tons of material from our county landfill, and that's impressive. And if you need a visualization, that's 43 semi-loads of trash that isn't actually trash, that it's recycling. So just want to encourage anybody, if you're looking for a New Year's resolution or something to do on Friday afternoon, think of Clean Valley Recycling. They also have 6 full-time employees, and we have a year. The clock has started. It's very exciting. The producer responsibility policy in Colorado is changing things. So starting January 1st, 2026, free recycling will be provided to everyone in the state, including rural areas. And we are way, way, way ahead of the game because we have Clean Valley Recycling leading the charge on that. And I know he's planning to come to talk to the utilities board, so hopefully we'll hear more of a report on that after the utilities meeting. So also just wanted to give a shout out to the Yeehaw committee on setting up the emergency warming shelter. So if you need any details on that, it is at the Calvary Church. And then finally, just to follow up on the conversation about committee assignments, I think having council members on various committees is great, but I think it's just, the most important thing is that we're consistently reporting at council on all the different committees that meet in the city. So whether it's the manager, the mayor, or a council member, that the various councils that are doing the work of the city are being given the same audience at a city council meeting for the happenings and going-ons. That's it.
All right. I just want to add 2 things. First thing is I'm very happy to see Mr. Bill Jackson in the audience tonight. Bill does a lot for our city, and I'm glad to see him at this council meeting tonight. So thank you for coming tonight, Bill. Second thing is Mr. Brad Davidson. There was a comment made earlier about you. I think you have done an amazing job as our interim city manager. And I hope that you feel that I appreciate you so much this last year. Everything we've done together, everything we've worked on together, you've done everything I've asked and more. You answer questions quickly. You've helped this council and this city move forward. So I don't ever want you to think that, I appreciate you at any time during that.
And I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the council for working with me and educating me on the same way on things, and allowing me to make changes to help move forward with things. So it's been a great challenge and a great experience, and the same goes to all of you as well. You've all been open and wanting to listen and encouraging. So I wouldn't want to change anything there, and I do appreciate everything.
We'll make it clear you're not off the hook yet.
Here I am.
And just so everyone watching, we probably will take off that city manager search for the meetings going forward. But if everything goes through the way it should go through, we're looking at getting Michael probably mid-February. So just for city's information for the people watching at home, Michael Hart should be here mid-February, making sure everything goes good. And then we will start that transition process from a long-term city manager with Rick to Brad and now to Michael. And we look forward to working together to make this city the best it can be.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, there'll be no change of what we're doing and make that transition easy.
Thanks for keeping us informed.
Hey, you bet, it was a good ride.
a couple more. You still got a couple more.
You got it.
Yeah, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
And with that, I will adjourn us. Thank you all for coming out tonight.